Captain Sarah Chun stood at attention in the briefing room, her flight suit crisp and her posture perfect. Around her, 23 other pilots sat in metal chairs, their eyes fixed on the mission board at the front of the room. The air conditioning hummed quietly, but Sarah could still feel sweat gathering under her collar. This was the moment she had been working toward for 8 years. Colonel Marcus Webb walked to the front of the room, his boots clicking against the polished concrete floor. He was a tall man with gray hair and tired eyes who had flown combat missions in 3 different wars. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of experience that came from sending young pilots into dangerous situations. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a situation developing in the Eastern Mediterranean, Colonel Webb began, clicking a remote to display a map on a large screen behind him. Red dots marked 12 different locations across a mountainous region. Intelligence has confirmed that hostile forces have established a network of surface-to-air missile sites, radar installations, and command centers in this area. These installations pose a direct threat to our naval operations and commercial shipping lanes. Sarah studied the map carefully, noting the positions of the targets and the terrain features. The installations were spread across roughly 200 square miles of rugged mountains and valleys. Each site was heavily defended and positioned to provide overlapping coverage of the airspace above. The mission will require precision strikes against all 12 installations within a single night operation, the colonel continued. Complete destruction of these sites is essential to ensure the safety of our forces and maintain freedom of navigation in this critical region. One of the pilots, Major Rick Thompson, raised his hand. Thompson was an experienced F-16 pilot with over 15 years of combat experience and a reputation for speaking his mind. Sir, what aircraft will be assigned to this mission? Colonel Webb paused for a moment, his eyes scanning the room before settling on Sarah. The mission will be flown by a single F-35 Lightning II. A murmur of surprise rippled through the room. Sarah felt 23 pairs of eyes turned toward her, and she kept her expression neutral despite the mixture of excitement and nervousness building in her chest. Major Thompson leaned forward in his chair. Sir, with respect, wouldn't it make more sense to use a full squadron for a mission of this scope? 12 targets is a lot for one aircraft to handle. The F-35 stealth capabilities and advanced sensor systems make it uniquely suited for this type of operation, Colonel Webb replied. A larger formation would increase the risk of detection and compromise the mission. Captain Jake Morrison, another F-16 pilot, shook his head. Colonel, I've been flying combat missions for 12 years. This sounds like a job for experienced pilots with proven track records. No offense to Captain Chun, but she's only been flying the F-35 for 2 years. Sarah felt her jaw tighten slightly, but she maintained her professional composure. She had heard variations of this argument many times before. Her relatively recent transition to the F-35 program often became a point of discussion among the more senior pilots. Captain Chun has completed over 400 hours of F-35 flight time and has demonstrated exceptional proficiency with the aircraft systems, Colonel Webb stated firmly. Her performance in training exercises has been outstanding. Major Lisa Rodriguez, one of the few other female pilots in the squadron, spoke up. Sir, what's the timeline for this mission? Wheels up at 2,300 hours, the colonel replied. The mission window opens at 0100 and closes at 0400. All targets must be neutralized within that time frame to ensure maximum tactical advantage. Captain Morrison crossed his arms. 3 hours to hit 12 targets across 200 square miles. That's cutting it pretty close, especially for a single aircraft. The F-35's advanced targeting systems and precision munitions make this timeline achievable, Colonel Webb said. Captain Chun will be carrying a full complement of small-diameter bombs and air-to-surface missiles. Sarah finally spoke up. Sir, what about enemy air defenses? Intelligence reports indicate significant SAM coverage in the target area. Excellent question, Captain, the colonel replied, clicking to the next slide, which showed radar coverage patterns. The enemy has deployed a mix of older Russian systems and some newer installations. Your aircraft's stealth characteristics should allow you to penetrate the defensive network undetected. Major Thompson shook his head again. Colonel, I still think this mission would be better suited for a more experienced pilot. Captain Chun is skilled, but this is her first major combat assignment. Wouldn't it make sense to have someone with more combat experience handle something this critical? Sarah felt a flash of frustration, but kept her voice steady. Major Thompson, I've trained extensively on similar mission profiles. I'm confident in my ability to execute this operation successfully. Training is one thing, Captain, Thompson replied. Real combat is something entirely different. There are variables and complications that you can't simulate in training exercises. Captain Morrison nodded in agreement. The Major has a point. This mission has a lot of moving parts and very little room for error. Maybe it would be better to assign someone with more combat experience. Colonel Webb raised his hand to stop the discussion. The decision has been made. Captain Chun will fly this mission. She has been specifically selected based on her demonstrated proficiency with F-35 systems and her exceptional performance in training scenarios that mirror this operation. Major Rodriguez looked concerned. Sir, what about backup plans? If something goes wrong, what options do we have? Captain Chun will maintain radio contact with our command center throughout the mission, the colonel explained. If necessary, we have standby aircraft ready to provide support. However, the mission profile requires stealth and precision that are best achieved by a single aircraft. Sarah appreciated Major Rodriguez's question, which seemed motivated by professional concern rather than doubt about her abilities. Major, I've studied contingency procedures extensively, the F-35's defensive systems, and my training should handle most potential complications. Major Thompson wasn't satisfied. Captain, with respect, you're talking about theoretical scenarios. In real combat, things go wrong in ways you can't anticipate. Equipment failures, unexpected enemy responses, weather changes. There are dozens of variables that can turn a straightforward mission into a nightmare. Major Thompson, Colonel Webb said with a slight edge to his voice, Captain Chun has been thoroughly evaluated and deemed ready for this mission. Your concerns are noted, but the decision stands. The tension in the room was palpable. Sarah could see the skepticism in many of her colleagues' faces. Some of it was probably legitimate professional concern, but she suspected that some of it was also doubt about her abilities based on her relative inexperience and perhaps her gender. Captain David Park, a quiet F-18 pilot who rarely spoke up during briefings, raised his hand. Sir, what about the political implications if this mission fails? 12 enemy installations is a significant target set. If they're not all destroyed, won't that compromise our strategic position in the region? That's precisely why success is essential, the colonel replied. These installations represent a coordinated threat to our operations. Partial destruction would alert the enemy to our capabilities while leaving significant defensive assets intact. Major Thompson leaned back in his chair. So we're betting everything on one pilot in one aircraft. Seems like a lot of risk for what could be accomplished by a coordinated strike package. Sarah decided she needed to address the elephant in the room directly. Major Thompson, I understand your concerns. You have more combat experience than I do, and I respect that. But I also know this aircraft better than anyone else in this room. I've spent the last 2 years learning every system, every capability, every limitation of the F-35. That knowledge, combined with my training, makes me the right choice for this mission. Knowledge and training are important, Thompson acknowledged. But combat experience teaches you things that can't be learned in a classroom or simulator. Split-second decision-making under pressure, dealing with equipment failures when lives are on the line, adapting to rapidly changing tactical situations. These are skills that develop over time. Captain Morrison nodded. The Major's right. I've been in situations where everything went wrong at once. Training helps, but experience is what gets you home. Colonel Webb stepped forward. Gentlemen, I appreciate your concerns, but they're based on outdated thinking about air combat. The F-35 represents a fundamental shift in how we conduct these operations. Its sensor fusion, situational awareness, and precision strike capabilities allow a single aircraft to accomplish what previously required multiple aircraft. Sarah felt grateful for the colonel's support, but she also knew that she would have